What's going on, people? Welcome to another special episode of the Natty News Daily podcast. We've got a very exciting guest, first time appearance on the podcast, but hopefully not the last after some conversations we've had off air. I'm super excited. We've got the president of the WNBF, Miss Nancy Andrews, on the podcast. Welcome, Nancy. Appreciate you coming on.
Oh, Leroy, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you guys and share some good information about natural bodybuilding.
Yeah, this is going to be good. I think we are all through and through bodybuilding fans at the heart of
Mm.
this. The three of
Yeah,
us. James could echo that if he was able to come on too. And I think a lot of listeners could also agree with that statement. So I think this is going to be cool. Hearing from someone who's been in and around the industry for so long in different ways, right? As a competitor, as a coach, I imagine at some point now at the
actually coached.
never coached. Well, I'm sure you've helped someone in the gym from time
Yeah,
to
no,
time.
I've helped people. I've
Yeah.
recruited a lot of people to compete, but I give coaches a lot of credit. It's not an easy job.
It
It,
is
it
not.
looks a lot easier on paper than it actually is.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Coach slash therapist. It's a fine line.
Yeah, right. I hear you.
So Nancy, for those that maybe aren't familiar, because Natty News Daily has quite the reach, and I know not all of our followers are potentially familiar with you, potentially familiar
Yep.
with your role within the WNBF. Can you kind of back up a little bit with the position and the role you play?
Sure. So I started off as a competitor and qualified to the WNBF in 1995. Were you born then?
I was one.
All right.
Two.
5 years old, I qualified, which is kind of funny. So I qualified, and at the time, there was, the natural everything was a lot different because there wasn't internet. And that's a huge thing because the way that I got into the sport was competing a lot and making meeting people at events. That was kind of how when I was competing, that's how people would learn about the sport or learn about what was going on. Gyms actually put posters up and had calendars of events for different shows. And, I know that's not as common now because the gyms are a lot different today, too. But so I started as the competitor and quickly got into promoting, mostly in my area where I'm in Massachusetts. So I promoted one show. I started as a novice only show, which was really fun. And then I went to a sanctioned show with an organization called the AMBC. And the AMBC fell apart, and most of the parts of the AMBC went to the OCB. So many of the people that I knew and promoted with and competed with, if they're older or my age, they were probably part of the same group that I was hanging around with at the time. So I know a lot of the people like Sean Sullivan and a few of the other people that have been around a while. And so when the AMBC folded, I ended up competing in the Worlds in '97, and that was the first Worlds that I won. And after that, I kind of had, there was a lot more restrictions and so forth on competitors because the organization had their own magazine that was an international publication. So that was the whole reasoning behind that they wanted to restrict athletes because they kind of felt like if they were putting you in their magazine, giving you exposure, that you should have some loyalty to them and compete with them. So I ended up starting to promote for, at the time, the qualifying organization for the WNBF was actually the NGA,
Okay.
which is, some people don't know that. So the NGA was, if you wanted to qualify to the WNBF, you had to compete in the NGA. And then there was also the NAMBF. Those were the two qualifying sanctions, which both of them parted ways and went their own, off on their own. And the IMBF was formed, and then I became an IMBF promoter. So where things kind of changed for me, I had my two shows. I did the Monster Mash, and then I had the Northeast Classic with a pro show, the Pro American. Where things changed in 2013 as magazines were starting to go out of business and go down, and that industry wasn't doing well. The person that owned the organization was a man named Che Lowe. He also owned all the magazines. So he was closing down the magazines and wanted to basically get rid of the organization. And that year, he didn't want to host Worlds. So I was asked by Charlie Carollo, who Charlie was running the organization at the time, if I would promote the Worlds on my own. And that was like a pretty big ask because of the amount of prize money and just, promoting so many shows. I knew I was going to have to pay to have the Worlds. Like, you're not going to make enough money to cover the prize money, cover all the expenses. So it was basically, do I want to pay money to keep this going? But I felt like at the time, like I had been promoting for, 15 years. I had done really well in the sport. I had won prize money in the sport, the whole time I competed. So I said, you know what, I should do this because it's really important that this show doesn't fall apart. Like, we need to keep this going.
Right.
So I did it with a lot of support from Charlie. And I had met Tina Smith when I was competing. We competed against each other. And I had invited her and Bob to come and judge that Worlds because I said, you know what, I need to get some different people. We want to have people from all over the country. So I'll invite them to come. And they came. And then the opportunity came up right at that Worlds for like, hey, Che wants to totally get out. Do you want to buy the organization? So at the time, my kids were pretty young, and I was like, there's no way I can do this by myself. And so since they were on the West Coast, I was here. We had a lot in common, in terms of like our view of natural bodybuilding, the importance of the testing, some of the things like that. So we ended up partnering up and took over the WNBF in 2014.
Mhm.
So, and here we are, 2023, going into 2024.
This will be a decade.
Yeah, a little over, because it's 23 was the 10th, but we didn't have a Worlds in COVID.
Yeah.
And 2013 Worlds that I did by myself.
Right.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Okay. So
but
there's so many things I want to talk about. We talked about before we come on and just kind of casually in conversation through Instagram on the Natty News page about the depth of field and the quality that we've seen and the changes over the years. Obviously, you've seen athletes come and go over the years, and
yeah.
well, a lot of the people getting into it now probably aren't familiar with the names of old and the people that have paved the way. And I think that that's a shame because the quality and the talent in those early years is damn impressive. Like, I
Yeah.
mentioned before we come on, like Brian Whitaker to me is kind of like one of the greatest ever, if not the greatest ever. And most people probably don't know who he is, which is a shame. So can
It
you
is.
can you touch on just what you've observed, since you've kind of been in the position you're in now over these decades, and what's changed, good, bad, ugly, and different?
Right. So, I think the category, adding all these categories changed a lot of things
Sure.
because up until, let me think what year. So the men's bodybuilding up until 1999 was the first year the WNBF introduced weight classes.
Okay.
So that they had Worlds was just a pro show, and there was one in Atlantic City. I think there were like 50 men in the pro men's bodybuilding.
Whoa.
So a very big challenge to judge and sort through. So the weight classes definitely changed a lot of things in the men's bodybuilding. In terms of women's bodybuilding, again, the women's was one class, and then they went to the weight classes in 1999. But at that time, there was no figure. So if you can imagine the top figure women that we see today competing in women's bodybuilding.
Okay.
So it changes because the way the scoring is, you're scoring symmetry and you're scoring muscularity and condition. So some of the figure people are going to win the symmetry round.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
I have always said, if someone's good in figure today, they can compete in every category.
Yeah.
Because you have to have the right structure, the good genetics to be a really top figure. But The categories definitely watered things down, and then also just the number of shows and the number of pro cards awarded. And unfortunately, it's not something we can undo.
Yep.
I wish I could, if we could go back and make it, you've got to win a champion. Even it's not even just with us, it's with every organization. This push to get people into the pro really quickly has watered it down, because you have this lower level pro, a lot of them, and they're not going to grind it out. Like, they're not as committed as somebody that maybe took 5 years to get a pro card, and then they're like, oh my god, I got to do a pro show, I'm going to wait 2 years, I'm going to train, I'm going to get ready. It's this rush to get to the pro status and to get on a pro stage, and a lot of people don't have that kind of grit to lose and to get there, to not do well. They've won, now they're starting over and not do well, and then just like, okay, you know what, I did a pro show, so now I'm going to go do CrossFit. Okay, I'm going to go do the Spartan races, I'm going to do whatever. So there's a lot of other options in fitness today, but I think because we award so many pro cards, there is a lot of lower, what I would consider like people that really, they're pros, but they're not ready to compete on a pro stage. And
There's pro physiques and
mhm,
having like a pro label. And
yeah,
they are not the same, right? It's funny you mentioned that. I found this post today, and it was stats from NPC Nationals that occurred this past weekend. 89 pro cards awarded.
right. Yeah, so they're doing it too. I mean, it used to be uh really hard to get an IFBB pro card, because when I was the gym that I worked out at when I started out, it was the same gym that Jay Cutler worked out at. So I knew him. He was a teenager. He worked out there. And me and a group of friends, we would travel to all of his shows. We saw him compete. He won his pro card at the Nationals in Dallas. I think it was 96. But we went to those shows, and it was a big deal. I mean, it was
Oh yeah.
not, but now you're right. It's even there, but I think they got caught in the same thing, that there's this big rush to get pro status. So, all right, let's just let them all be pros and it'll work itself out. And it's fine. It is fine, because there's a market for that. And there's people that, that's their thing. They're going to get the pro card and they're not going to be as committed. But I think if you looked back at the competitors competing in the late 90s and the 2000s, the length of the time they competed was much longer. It wasn't unusual for someone to compete for a decade. Now, shorter lived career. When you get into the women's categories, it could be a 2-year career.
Yep. Yep. When did the frequency of competing for a pro come into effect? Because I mean, as you know, as a natural athlete, progress
Hmm.
takes time. It takes time away from dieting. It takes time away from crashing your hormones.
Right.
uh, so when you look at, potentially these older bodybuilders that maybe they had long careers, but maybe they didn't compete every year or every 2 years, but they were always able to make substantial progress.
Hmm.
But when did the rule come into place that you need to compete every 2 years? And can you put some insight into why that rule come into play?
That was always in that
Oh,
was
okay.
always of the WNBF. Um, I don't know that it's strictly in. I mean, it's one of those things that, yeah, also have to be aware that sometimes life gets in the way. Like, people have, they have a child and they want to, spend time with their kid. You can't redo that time. So I think it's a tough one. I think that, you know it's a hobby. And I know we just switched. We used to have that you had to compete within a year of earning your pro card, and that was really hard for a lot of people in terms of, being ready to step on a pro stage, but also the financial side of it, because of
Statistically, yep. That
prep,
was,
whatever they may have to do. So,
yep.
you know, it, it's something that definitely, um, it, it could be extended, but I think the other side of that is the longer most people are, it's different with the bodybuilding, but in some of the other categories, if someone doesn't compete within 2 years, they're not likely to come back.
Right.
So it's kind of like, that's going to kind of keep them um, more focused on the goals and keep the competition going. I think.
Do you think just this just popped into my head now, but do you think maybe that almost weeds out the lesser serious, lesser quality? Because when I think of like for me, for example, I'll run you through my exact scenario. So I earned my WNBF pro card last year, and then
Mhm.
we were wanting to start trying for a family. And like you said, logistically, like for me, the closest timeline pro show was 8 weeks after I won, after I had already been dieting for 37 weeks. It was 8 weeks, but it was also like driving distance 9 hours, a plane ride 3 or 4 hours. So
Yeah.
both timeline, schedule, finances, and then life circumstances pretty much was like, yeah, this is not going to happen. But
Right.
I've now put all that effort into an off season because I take the sport very seriously. Whereas maybe someone that falls off after that 1 or 2 years, well, maybe they were bottom of the pack anyways, which might dilute the quality. That
Hmm.
that just popped into my head now, but
Yeah.
obviously that might not be factual. But
You know what? I think, for someone like you that's committed to the sport, even if it meant you had to go back and qualify again, you're going to qualify again.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's not like, if you put yourself out there and you are training and you're doing everything to improve, you're going to be able to do it again. But I do think that that is a tough thing. And there's people with like medical conditions that,
yeah,
they
for sure.
have something that, they have some type of surgery and they're out a year for that, let alone to get back on stage could take 2 years. So it is a tough one. But
Yeah,
to uh it's hard to say. I guess there's difference. It's so individual and so unique. But
yep,
for you personally, I would say spend the time with your child and
yeah.
enjoy that, because they're only going to be that age for a short period of time. And don't worry about the bodybuilding. You'll qualify again if that's required. You know what I mean?
For sure, for sure. No, I appreciate that insight because, I would say every once in a while we get asked like through Natty News like questions about that kind of stuff, and not just with the WNBF, but with organizations and all the rules. And
Hmm.
this is why I like having these conversations because that
Right.
transparency is only helpful for people.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's not always just like, well, we need you on stage, because I think that's what people think sometimes, like, oh, we need you on stage by this, and this, and
No.
it's not about that, right?
No.
It's trying to continue to get people on stage and build the sport and improve the sport, right? So I think I think this is why these conversations are helpful.
Mm.
So we kind of went on a tangent there, but now like with regards to quality and what we've seen over the years, you mentioned, I don't think we were on air yet, about like professional uh what's the word I'm looking for? Like
Pres-
presentation. Yeah, that's
right.
the word.
Not just that. It's other things too. Like I've seen more, when it was harder to qualify,
Yeah.
uh, there were fewer shows. Um, Someone in the bodybuilding category wasn't going to show up and not know how to pose, not know how to put their tan on, not wear the proper suit. Those things just didn't happen. But now where we're qualifying people who really are probably not ready and probably are not really professionals in terms of their preparations for contest specifics. You see a lot of stuff where people are winning and their posing is not great. Or another one that is that's bothersome to me because it also affects people watching the sport are people that put absolutely no effort into a routine.
Oh,
So, do we
you know,
use the routine? Yeah, we use it as a tiebreaker. We can use it as a tiebreaker. But my expectations for a pro is that it's a choreographed routine to music that matches the poses. You're not just throwing music up and going out there and doing a couple random poses and throwing your hands up to get the audience to cheer for you, because the audience shouldn't cheer for you.
you don't like the most muscular on the left, most muscular on the right, front double in the middle, walk off to Metallica. You don't like that, eh?
No, I don't. I kind of find it a little bit almost disrespectful, because I think that the people who go to the show That's one of the funnest things to watch.
Well,
Like
it's
if
one of the entertaining aspects, right?
yeah, and it's really, really when you see a good routine, you're like, "Oh my god," and you remember them. You're like, "Wow, that was so good." I liked how they did this or that or
Yeah.
whatever. And I'll even go as far as saying in the walks with the women, if uh someone in the figure category just goes out and does the walk versus somebody who is presenting to the audience and they're really, engaging with the audience and connecting with the audience, there's a big difference. That would be my expectation for a pro. The pro that walks out that's looking for the spot on the ground so that they hit it to do their side pose. Like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
So I watch, I probably notice more than most. Um, and I know a lot of people get into the judging, they're wrapped up in the actual physique part, but the presentation part is huge. And that's what keeps interest in the sport. People that don't know the sport are going to watch that and be like, "Oh, that was awesome. Like, did you see blah, 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 whatever."
Yeah.
So it's really important. And I wish that more pros would spend more time on that, not just the mandatory poses, more time on the mandatory poses, but also more time on the routine and the individual walks and making that really polished.
Yeah. I've been at shows where I've been backstage in the lineup and they'll be like, where's your music? They're like, I'll just throw something on. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Like that would throw me off so bad. I wouldn't even know what to do. Yeah. That's not
Well,
good.
house music is at the discretion of the promoter, so they can put whatever they want
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to like the athletes of before and you would see, 50 pros on stage, like would you say the preparedness maybe was a lot more before?
Well, and there, obviously there weren't other options. If you were competing a while and you ended up there and you went to Worlds, things were a little bit different then. But for the most part, when the only people that posed were the top people, so they cut everyone out really quick. But the routines were definitely scored, and I do think that people spent a lot more time on that free posing routine. But I can think of some current pros that do very nice routines and do a good job and definitely work hard at it. Um, but just overall, not as many. There's more, like you said, that say, oh, just, whatever you want to put on, just put it on.
It seems just across the board, like posing back in the day, it was just more emphasized. People cared about it more. People, when you like, we all come up with like looking at Arnold and Franco and Frank Zane and all those Sergio within bodybuilding in general. And
Hmm.
the effort they put in and the flow and the transitions and that, like it just seems to be a lost art within the
Mm.
sport.
Yeah, I think we haven't seen a lot of competitors from the UK or bodybuilders, not as many, but they seem to really still emphasize the routine. Like most of the guys that are coming over from the UK, they're still very choreographed. More often, it's like more classic poses and that style. But I think it's like an afterthought now for many, and I'd like to see that change. And at my Monster Mash, there was a person involved in bodybuilding that passed away named Todd Gansey, and he used to do custom music. He was doing custom music in the '90s. He did Dorian Yates music. He
Oh
did all
wow.
custom musics and routines. He did Paul Dillette. He did a whole bunch of the IFBB guys in the '90s. He did the choreography, and he was really into the routine. And so I give out a Todd Gansey Memorial Award for Best Poser. And this year, the winner was Marshall Johnson
Yeah.
at my Mash show. Now, Marshall,
A
definitely,
legend.
he's a legend. He is. And, he came back from some illness and is back on a stage. It's amazing that he's competing, but he's just a really, really polished competitor. His routine was choreographed. It was fantastic. On the women's side, the woman that won was Angela Olsen. And again, she had a very nice choreographed routine, very entertaining. So, if I'm trying to recognize those people that stand out that are doing the extra, and I get to give the award out in Todd's memory because
Yeah,
he
sure.
he deserves to have an award in his name because he was definitely the kind of person that every little thing about the sport mattered.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. Very
Yeah.
cool. Okay, let's dive into this
Okay.
year's Worlds. Unfortunately, we couldn't be there live, but Dan and I were glued to the live stream the whole time and play some bets on who we had winning. And
Place
uh,
in
I I just want to say we called the bodybuilding overall a day or two prior to that, which just goes to show our investment in the sport. We had the
Ryan
few.
had qualified at my Monster Mash show, which was the last week in November. He flew out
Yep.
from Colorado. He qualified in the amateur day and competed the pro day and won. And the guy he beat in the pro was very good.
What was his name? I can't remember.
Um, his name
Oscar, or I
was
think
Moscat. Yeah, Oscar Moscat.
Yeah,
I
he's
had
he's huge.
yeah, he's shorter, a little bit thicker, but he was just not as sharp. But he gave him he pushed him on a lot of poses, like the back stuff, the back shots. Oscar probably had him, but he had bigger arms than
His
him. But
arms are ridiculous. I just
yeah,
want to. I don't know if Oscar will ever watch this, but dude, kudos to
well,
your arms.
supposed to go to Worlds. I don't know what happened. I was kind of bummed because I was hoping, like the 2 weeks, he could get sharper.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
great. He was so good. It's like, can you believe looking at them? I'm like, okay, these guys are both making their pro debut, and I can't believe one of them has to get second.
yeah. That's what you want, though, right? You want that at every show.
Yeah, and then Kemp Beerley was actually third in that show.
Yep.
The AMBF, he owns the AMBF, so he was third, and he was a different. I mean, he's a grinder. He's grainy. He's ripped.
Yeah.
Definitely a
very
show.
muscular. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's probably giving away 30, 40 pounds to those guys.
Compared to those two, yeah.
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah.
Enormous.
So let's maybe go category by category. I don't know how much we'll talk about each one specifically, but just
Okay.
you were obviously there, and maybe the things you saw, the insights you have, things you want to share. So let's maybe we'll do bodybuilding last. Let's start with men's physique.
Okay, so men's physique. Hold on, I'm gonna get to the score sheets just so we have.
Ooh, we got the inside scoop.
Yeah, got the inside scoop. So the winner, Song Hoin Kim, he was unanimous for first. Also won the overall. He's from Korea. Definitely very complete. He had leg development too, which we always have little discussion about how we feel about the leg development for physique.
Okay.
My feeling is they have to have some. Like,
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
yeah, and if the shorts are huge and I can't see anything, there's probably nothing there.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they'll need to work their legs. But I felt like he was really well balanced overall. He had very, very well conditioned. So he was first. Kyle Okora was second. And third
Leora,
was a
you could pull up some photos, could you? Anyone?
I don't have the pictures right here, but I could get you some pictures. I don't know if this is live, but I can definitely send you pictures of each class, the top 5, so you can kind of get a look. Chris Elkins was last year's winner, overall winner, and he fell to 4th. I think
That one surprised us. We were like, again, we were watching it and we were like, oh my God, like Elkins 4th. We've had him on the podcast. Great guy, great physique, obviously. So it was a bit of a surprise.
yeah, so just a couple things about judging, just so people understand this. So the head judge does not score. The head judge just calls out and makes comparisons. So I was not the head judge on this class. Bob Bell was, but I scored this class. So I can talk about this class because I scored it. So the head judge is making comparisons so the judges can make their decisions. So they should be putting people so that, they'll move people around, because if you're on the end, you need to have people near you so you can see them. And, that's kind of what's happening with the moving of the people around. But the interesting thing is that the judges don't have to agree. They never have to agree.
Right.
We drop a high and a low score, and then it's the middle 5 scores that count towards the overall total for placement. So with Chris Elkins, his scoring, he had as high as second, he had as low as 8th.
Damn.
So there was definitely a different idea on him. I liked his physique. I liked the package he brought. He's a professional on stage. I will say people's true colors come out in defeat. And he was gracious of the champion. He shook his hand. There was no, he's a classic. Not gonna, and I'm
sure.
Disappointed. He's a professional. He tries his best all the time. He's trying to get better. Maybe he tried something and spilled over a little. He wasn't quite as sharp as he was last year. And he wasn't, but more so than last year, he wasn't as sharp as the guy that won. And
sure.
A couple other people in between were a little sharper than him. But I think that he's always going to be contending in that category, in that class, because he has the overall package.
Yep. So that was the short class. So then medium, my boy Josh took the win on that.
Yes. Yep. He was, that was a close call there too. He had first and seconds. Let me just see here, so there's 3 people that had first place votes in that class.
Oh, wow.
He had all first and second. So only 3 judges had him first. The rest had him second. So more of the panel had him second, which is interesting. He still won though with the 8 points he won. The second place was Santiago Prada Garcia. Harry Ranson, he was an amateur winner last year. I think he won his pro card at the Amateur Worlds from the UK. And then Louis Galega was in 4th, and Don Christian Corbin was 5th. But Josh was really good, really well polished. I think in the overall, it just the short winner and the overall winner, a little bit sharper, a little smaller waist, proportionally a little bit better, maybe.
Right.
This was the class. Hold on, okay. Yeah. Yep. So he was great. Josh was great. I don't think he has to change much either. He's just got to keep competing.
Yep.
He looked a little bit, this is just my opinion, not always comfortable on stage. Like he's kind of got a perma grin where he's smiling the whole time, where, there are times where maybe he could even practice his facial expressions, where he makes it look a little harder than I'd like to see.
Okay.
Look a little easier.
Right. Make it look easy at least, right?
Exactly. It's not easy, but where the other guy was kind of cool and just,
calm.
Yeah. The tall class was exciting. Definitely Terrence Wold, he was from Canada, won.
Yeah, Canadian boy. That's right. I was out in Calgary when he won his pro card. That was awesome.
He was great. He was very well balanced, really good with his posing, very well prepared. The guy that got second, I know there was I read some online stuff, about complaining about his placement, but I think he was in the right spot. He had really small lower body, not as well balanced top to bottom. His shorts were big, like they looked like boxing shorts. Mm-hmm. That like satin boxing short material. So they looked almost like too big for him too. So I don't think that helped.
Yep. Yeah, it's all part of the overall presentation, right? Like people were like, "Oh, they shouldn't be judging my shorts. It's a physique competition." But if that's taking away from the look, then that's obviously an issue, right?
Well, it was, the whole lower body part. Does lower body count in physique? I think it does. Where he had, tiny calves, small legs, big shorts,
it starts to clash.
Exactly. Where the other, Terrence was, really put together well. His upper and lower body were developed. He was great. And it was close in the overall. For the overall, let's see, we had all three of them had first place votes from at least one judge.
Wow,
So
that's cool.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
I was watching it live and I was like, I don't know if I want to cheer for Terrence because he's Canadian, or if I want to cheer for Josh because I'm kind of bros with him online. I'm like, oh, we'll see what happens. And then neither one of them won, so I was like, well, there we go. Doesn't matter.
Yep. It's
Cool.
interesting. But they were all very good. And I think the men's physique is a category that's actually improving. The first year we offered it at Worlds, I believe was 2015, where we had one class, and now we're at the point that we're having 3 classes at Worlds. Internationally, it's more popular for sure. Certain countries, it's very popular.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, let's jump to figure. I got the list in front of me now.
Yeah, figure was
Figure was a
exciting.
fun one.
Yeah, figure had split, votes. Edna Fair, who had previously won a few years ago, but has always been in contention, ended up second. And the winner, Pina Sarasola, she's from Italy, and she had won the Fit Body Pro card on Saturday. So she competed Saturday to earn her Fit Body Pro card, and then in this class was able to edge out Edna for the first place in that. I wish there were more competitors in it, but we only had 6 in the figure, which was kind of a little disappointing. We've had years where we've had 2 classes of figure, and I think by adding the masters, we added a masters figure at the World Championships. A lot of the women that are figure pros are masters, so we it up that way versus that. But I mean, both of those ladies are fantastic.
Very different, just size contrast.
Yeah,
side by side. Like Edna's just overpowering, that wicked figure frame, very muscular, and then I don't remember her name, but smaller scale, great shape, but smaller scale, right?
Yeah, that's why it's nice when you can have the height classes, because the proportions are more similar. There's probably in those 2 women, what, 7, 8 inches. It seems like a foot, but
oh yeah,
7, 8 inches difference in height between the 2. And it was close. The third was Leah Kautz, and then from Spain, Sonia Rodriguez Teledar was 4th, and Catherine Plosser was 5th. But it was a class where they were all really good. Like, when you looked, it was a good class. Just, we'd like to see more people in it. So hopefully, even though things are opened up and we kind of forget about COVID in the US, I think a lot of the regions are still recovering from that. And, in terms of qualifying people for the figure category, in the past 2 years, we haven't qualified as many people.
Right.
So hopefully next year we'll turn it around and we'll get some new energy into that figure category.
Yep.
Do you think having more women's bodybuilding or women's classes contributes to that as well in the WNBF? Because men's side you only had 2, and women's side 4 classes.
Yeah, no, I know it is a lot. That the figure was pre-bikini, so
yeah,
it started off just bodybuilding, and then they added figure. And when the WNBF first added figure, the figure actually had an evening gown portion, which is interesting. And then when they added bikini, they called it best body. It wasn't even called bikini, it was called best body. And then the fit body kind of came because we had an affiliate in Australia. This was probably around 2009, 8, 9, around that time frame. That they didn't do figure, they only did fit body, and they didn't do bodybuilding. So we ended up adding fit body, and it became very popular because at that time we allowed people to cross. So a woman that was a pro in figure could also do pro fit body. If they qualified in both, they could compete in both at Worlds.
Oh wow.
So it was a little different then, but I think it's a case of the organization at the time when they were adding all these were kind of trying to add a category for all these different body types. Just like with the men, they added the physique for the guys that aren't as big as a bodybuilder, or maybe don't want to train like a bodybuilder, or want to be a model, or whatever it is. And on the women's side, it's kind of the same. But I will always say this: if you take a top figure person, you can throw them in any women's category, including bikini, if they pose right, and they're going to be competitive. It's kind of crazy, but just because they have the great structure, they have good symmetry, they can pose differently to meet the criteria for every category.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Figure is one of those divisions where it's a really specific, like to be a top figure athlete, like you got great skeleton.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah.
got lucky bones.
Genetics are huge. I mean, obviously they have to do stuff with it, but
Yeah, for
genetic
sure.
category is probably the most genetic of all the categories.
Yep. Yep. I agree. Okay.
Yeah.
That checks figure off. Down to bikini.
Bikini. Oh, you want to do fit body?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. We can do
Yeah,
fit body.
that's kind of in order. So fit body, the winner was Becky Pateman from Australia. She
Yep.
was awesome. Definitely a really, really good, her symmetry was good, her posing was good. She was very polished. She wasn't unanimous. Somebody had her second, but she was pretty close to unanimous. And second was Beth Hills, and third was Anna Verliotti, and fourth is Stephanie Rummel. Is she Canadian? Or maybe she's
I'm not sure.
Washington. And then in fifth was Suzanne Shaw. But Becky Pateman from Australia definitely reminded me a little bit of Terry McBee and Patricia Beckman, the twins that were dominating in the IFPA. One did bodybuilding, one did figure. She kind of, I never got to see them in person. I always wanted to, but they both were.
Post them on the page. One of them on the page at one point. They were,
Yeah,
I think that was
yeah,
the ones I sent you. It was maybe a month or two back. Yeah.
yeah. They're sisters. They're Kansas City.
Yeah.
But unbelievable physiques. But this Becky Pateman, when I saw her, I was like, oh wow, she kind of reminds me of Patricia and Terry. But she was excellent, and I hope we'll see more of her, because I think she's a good standard for fit body, and a good goal for people to look
Yep.
up to, strive to be like. She had a great total package, very polished. I didn't get to meet her. I wish I did, but she was awesome.
Sweet. Yeah. No, I agree. I think just looking at her photo here from her win, and yeah, incredible athlete.
Yeah. Yeah, she was great. And I hope we'll see her again. So
Yeah.
next year, maybe in Boston. It's a long flight though.
Yeah. Yeah, from Australia for sure.
Well, yeah, I know. I've already heard from a few people that it's too cold in Boston, but Seattle's not a lot warmer than Boston. So
Warmer than Canada.
yeah, true. It'll be warm for you guys,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Moving down. What's next?
The bikini.
Okay. Canadian
So
girl took the overall.
she did, and she won the short class and the overall. The short class, I think, was pretty deep. I mean, there were people, the top 5 in that class other years probably could have won. That was the one class in bikini that really was just loaded. Paula Sands Perez was second. She had a couple first place votes. Alicia Lay was third. She had a first place vote. And fourth was Air Hernandez, and fifth was Carmen Valero. So the scoring was pretty consistent in the bikini. Definitely the short class, they were all really, really well conditioned. Very different posing styles. But I think a lot of that just is regional, where they're from. You can see different styles. Like Europeans, tend to have a different kind of stance in the bikini. But I thought that the class was good. There was good competition top to bottom.
Yeah. I just want to correct myself. Canadian girl won the Masters bikini. That's my mistake.
Oh, I think the girl that won the overall was Canadian.
Oh, well, maybe.
Canadian.
Oh, yeah, she is too.
Yeah, because
Well, correct my correction.
yeah, she was good. Canada racked it up. I mean, they were killing it. They were very impressive. They had a lot of good athletes.
We are great.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad that, the natural has grown in Canada. I think Leo King's done a really, really good job, promoting the WNBF Canada. I didn't mention this, but when we were in the talks of buying the WNBF, Matt Park was actually involved in the discussion, who was the owner of IMBF Canada at the time. But he had too many other business ventures going on at the time. So it didn't work out. But it's really grown a lot. And I'd like to see, maybe you can help with this, Leroy. You got to get some more shows in like Toronto and Montreal.
I ran the WNBF Ontario this year.
There you go.
We had a great turnout.
Yeah.
We had, what do we have, Dan? 70 athletes for the first show. We awarded pro cards in all three classes that we had represented: bodybuilding, men's physique, bikini.
Two in bodybuilding.
Yeah, 2 in bodybuilding because we had 31.
Nice.
I don't think it was 30. No, because I think 30 would have been the cutoff for 3. So I think it was maybe 31 total between the
True.
Open and Masters, but I think it was like 26 or something like that.
Oh, I didn't. Okay. All right.
Open.
Well, that's impressive to get 70 people right off the bat. You have to work to get that.
That's Natty News poll for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was bikini. Okay, women's bodybuilding, your neck of the woods.
Oh, well, quickly. I only did the short, the medium quickly.
Yep.
Winner was Sabrine Toomey. She was from Spain. She actually had competed in my Monster Mash and changed to, stayed in the United States. And then went out to Seattle, changed a lot over the time, but she changed her posing a little bit too. And I think that was helpful for her, but she ended up winning. Valentina Ramirez was second. Christy Sense, she's from California. She was third. Robin Mathis fourth, and Krista Riera was fifth. So a really good class. The tall class, I'll quickly go. The winner, Janina Boots. She's been a top contender and won a lot of shows in the Northeast. And second was Lady Pena Osario, and she's from New Jersey. Very, very good. More like model. She looks like a model. She's very pretty, but great physique, and did a good job there. Third was Catherine Ketty. Fourth was Nancy Stops, and fifth was Benedetta Grasso. So Benetta, I'm sorry. Grasso, and the overall, obviously we already talked about, was the Canadian, the short winner, Michelle Elliott. And that was that. And then the women's bodybuilding, which is always a favorite for me, because that's the class
this year.
Yeah, it was decent. I mean, the 2014 Worlds in Boston, the first one I did with Tina and Bob, excuse me, we had 30 women bodybuilders in that show, and we had 3 weight classes. Wow. So if we ever get to that would be pretty good. So these, this one we had 7. No, wait, 3. Yeah, 7. So it was decent. There was decent competition, but I really like it when you can get to the point that you can have the weight classes. Yeah. Because it's exciting. I love the overalls. Like the men's overalls always, like, I'm like psyched. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Men's gotta get down there.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, our winner, Natalie Hayes, she's had quite a year. She's won a lot of shows. I understand she was self-trained, which is impressive. I hope she gets a coach, because I think she's real. I mean, she did unbelievable by herself, but with a little guidance, I think she can be, really, really difficult to beat. And I hope she continues competing in the naturals, because I think she's got a lot of potential.
Especially for how young she is too, right? What you had the call with her, Dan? Was she like 25, 26? Remember?
I didn't ask her that directly on the podcast, but I think that sounds about right. Yeah, she's young. Yeah.
She's under 30. I thought she said 27 or 28, but I'm not sure.
Late
Um,
20s.
yeah. Yeah, mid to late 20s, but she definitely has a lot to work with. And you can see that she's still, with years of training is going to get better.
Oh yeah.
Just I mean
Yeah.
her frame is big enough that she can handle more muscle.
Yep. She's just scratching the surface.
Yeah, right. So she was pretty incredible, for especially, I think this is her first year competing.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
wild.
Anita Righty was second. Lisa Lum, who's been a multi-year champion, ended up in third. And fourth was Angela Olsen, and Maria Seaton was fifth. Overall, I think Natalie and Anita split first and seconds. So it was a 1-point decision. They're very
Wow.
different. Anita definitely carried more muscle, but Natalie's legs are hard to beat.
Yeah, she got some meaty legs on her.
Yeah, and she's got, they're just,
Condition is really good. Yeah.
and that her the side tricep pose on her is incredible.
Yeah.
Her tricep like crazy.
Great. Yeah.
I may have called
nothing but a bright future.
the but yeah, so that was good. And hopefully I'm hoping next year as we come back to Boston, there are a lot of women's bodybuilders on the East Coast that haven't participated in Worlds. So, I'm hoping we can get the numbers up there that we have 2 weight classes for the women's bodybuilding. The last big showdown with the women with the classes, I think, was Kathy Vale. No, actually we had a later one. Wait, Kathy Vale was in a bunch of overalls. I don't know if you guys remember her. She's from Chicago. You can look her up. She was good. She was like in 2014-15 time frame. But that's kind of a goal that we're hoping. And
Yep.
Tina and I both competed in the women's bodybuilding, and along with the woman that set up the whole Seattle venue and has her shows there, Katie Wayman White. She also was in the women's bodybuilding. So we are really going to try to keep it going and keep people involved in it. And we're not going to rename it like some people. We're women's bodybuilding because that's what it is.
Yeah. Love that. Keep the purity.
All right. Yeah. So now to your favorites, the men's bodybuilding.
The big boys.
This is exciting this year.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, this
good.
year was wicked.
Well, the lightweight class, we've had bantamweight classes before, and this was just lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight. The lightweight class is always loaded because they have to be in such good shape to make that weight. So Dirk obviously has had a hell of a year. He,
Shout out to Dirk, the man.
Yeah, he definitely, very well polished. He wasn't unanimous for first, but
who got some votes then?
Believe it or not, our 4th place competitor, Sergio Blanco Arizabal, had a first place vote. No one else had the guy first, but one judge had him first. Jeff Alberts was our 5th place, and he was fantastic.
Yep.
The best I've ever seen him. So that's pretty impressive. I don't know his age, but he's been doing this a long time. And, to 52? See him.
52. Yeah, I think that's what I saw.
Posted that today, 52. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So I'm sure, he probably would have liked to be higher, but I'm sure when he looked at the pictures, he's like, yeah, I'm okay with it.
Oh yeah, he should be. That's for damn sure. Because I don't know if Jeff will listen to this, but you're an idol for a lot of us young bucks, my friend.
Yeah. No, he was fantastic. I saw him with his family, and he really is a professional. He, posing, his presentation, his you know the way he is on stage. Definitely, I hope people look up to someone like him.
Yeah. Yep.
He's does everything right. So yeah. So and with Dirk, he's, I think, gonna keep getting better. I do think that he still has potential to be bigger. Not that I mean, for his frame, he's carries a lot of muscle,
Yeah.
but I think that he still can improve and will improve over time because he's got a lot to work with. He's very well balanced, good symmetry,
Yep.
well prepared. Yeah.
Yeah. We've been pretty tight with Dirk for a couple of years now, and the
Mhm.
the progress he's made, even in the short time that we've been following him, kind of like 2021 to now, is pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. And for a smaller competitor and not having the bantamweight class, having to compare with guys that are, because he is a true bantamweight, having to compare with guys that are really lightweights or middleweights that over diet to get down into the lighter weight class. He's not losing to people because he's not muscular enough. So that's impressive.
Yeah,
You
it's
know, for
amazing, seeing them in the lineup, and what was the cutoff? 160, 165? Do you remember?
yeah,
So you figure he's probably given up 20 pounds to some of those guys, and you get
yeah,
them side by side, and you're like, that don't
right.
even matter because the man is good.
Yeah, and he's so ripped
Yeah, he's
that I
peeled. He's peeled.
yeah, he's probably going to win your peeled award.
And my vote.
Yeah, he's got my vote too.
Yeah, for him. I had to. It's like
Yeah.
because you saw stuff on him you're like, oh, really? A human body has that.
Oh yeah, he's got
Yeah,
muscles in places that people don't even have places.
yeah, yeah. He's pretty amazing, and he seems like he puts a lot into it, puts his heart and soul into it, which
Yep. He's a lover of the game.
yeah, definitely. There have been some other bantamweights that have done very well, but he's definitely in an elite group of bantamweights that have been able to compete. Sean Clarita obviously has gone on to bigger
Yep.
to PB, but he for years competed, and it was in the lightweight class, but he was probably weighing
Yep.
135.
130. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but he had a tough gig because when he was competing, there was Brian Whitaker, and if you could get by him, you also had Jim Cordova.
Oof.
So
What a mountain to climb.
no, but they're very different physiques. It's funny because every single one of them had a different strength, and each one won at some point. But Clarita, I think, won in 2011, and then kind of Whitaker came in and kept getting better. Um, I would tell you my little Brian Whitaker story. So I saw Brian Whitaker. I probably started judging him at Worlds maybe 2008. And he had won a number of lightweights, but he could never win the overall. And it was always like,
Yeah.
what do I do to win the overall? He was just giving away too much size. And then you'd get, these middleweights that were like Clarence McGill was a one-time world champion, but if you look him up, you're going to be like, oh my God. And if you saw him today, he's probably close to 60. He still looks like that. He's just unbelievable. But for Whitaker, in 2013, it was kind of there was a lot of hype about him and Siobhan Cunningham,
Yeah, him and Siobhan.
and so Siobhan ends up winning the middleweight and Brian wins the lightweight. And we had 4 weight classes. So we had a bantamweight, which was Mark Oakes. I don't know if you know him. He's from the UK.
Yeah.
Good guy. And then the Chabe was what was his name? Abraham Chabe. He was a guy from Georgia. So he ends up winning the heavyweight. So the 4 guys go. I can send you some pictures too, because you guys would probably be
Yeah,
interested.
please do. Please do.
Yeah, I'll send you a little overall. But anyway, it was really close between Whitaker and Siobhan, and it was a split 3-4 vote. And Whitaker lost. And he went right up to Charlie Carollo was the head judge, and he was in charge, and he was no nonsense. He was like a police detective. He's not gonna sugarcoat stuff. Whitaker goes, I need to know from you, did you have me first? And Charlie was like, you know what? This is the best I've seen you, but he beat you. He beat you today. And you know what Whitaker's response was? Thank you. Thank you for your time. I'll be back next year and I'll be better. So it was not, oh, these judges suck, or
Yeah.
it was, hey, I did. And he said, I did everything I could to be this good today. I'm going to do more. I'm going to come back and I'm going to be better. So he basically was saying he knew he couldn't have done anything else. And sometimes I do think that that's the case, that when people are competing, it's, you can do everything in your power, everything that you can do in that time frame to be your best, and you may just not be good enough on that day because someone else is just a little better. But he did come back and win, which was really pretty awesome. 2015, he won the overall. And the same year, he also won the overall at the Yorton Cup, which is tough to do because of the timing of those two shows. It's hard to win both.
Yeah. That's
It's a big break.
Yeah, like we were talking before, like going on his website, like for anybody that is kind of curious a little bit of what we're talking about, if you go to, I think it's just brianwhitaker.com, he's got like
.net.
.net, and he's got pretty extensive documentation of his pretty much whole career, and he's got galleries from Worlds and galleries from the Yorton Cup and all this kind of stuff, and there's some photos of him and Siobhan and all this kind, like it's just wild, like to go and look at some of that caliber of athlete.
I should invite, if you want to learn a lot, invite him on your show.
We've tried. We can't get a hold of him.
He doesn't do it. All right, I'll have to reach out to him and get him going.
You put a bug in his ear, please, because we tried and it didn't land.
I had a few seminars and he came where I did like weekend seminars, a 1-day seminar. He came and he did some lectures that were just like, one of his lectures was on how to diet when you have to work. Like you have to work a job, and it was so practical and stuff like should be common sense, but people were like, oh my God, I learned so much from that. Like just tips on the meal prep and what you have to plan ahead for and how you manage this with your family and with other things going on. He was great at documenting too. Like you said, he would take pictures of himself in the same place every single year. It was like the same lighting, same place, and so he has a lot of good like information that you can see.
Yeah, because he was a university professor, right?
Yep. Oklahoma State.
Yep.
Yeah. So, he was definitely somebody that gave a lot when he was competing. He gave a lot back because at that time there weren't as many prep coaches that had the knowledge. And he did a lot on his own. I don't think he used a coach. I think he was just doing his own. But he was a person that practiced posing every single day and took pictures and analyzed and tried every angle of every pose. I mean, he spent time preparing. And that's why when he said to Charlie, he said, listen, I did everything I could to be like this today, and it wasn't enough, but I will be back.
Yep. There's a video of him. I mean, every true bodybuilding fan's probably seen it, but him posing in like the gym change room, I think.
Yeah.
You can just find it on
video.
Yeah, you can just find it on YouTube. But if you want to look at like what a professional bodybuilder is, like just not even physique, like you take his physique out of it, but the way he transitions from his poses, it's effortless, right? Like it's like tying your shoes. He knows, if you could put like an ink blot on his thumb, it would land on his side chest, it would land on his forearm within millimeters, if not the exact same place every single time. And that's what you need to get to be a pro.
Right. And he competed for a lot of years. He was, I think 06 to 15 or 16, then he had knee surgeries and came back more as like he wanted to see if he could do it. But that's tough. He had major knee surgeries. So so he always made it exciting, that's for sure, because he was always prepared and fun to watch. In the middleweight, Benjamin Schuster was our winner.
What a season for that boy.
Oh yeah, he was great. 1 second place vote, all the rest first.
Did Frederick get a vote or two?
He got one. Yep, and he had all the
Those
rest.
two are incredible. To watch those
Yeah.
two side by side was damn impressive.
Yeah, they were both so good that it was like little things. I think Ben was probably a little fuller, but they were both really good. Agostino Russo was third. Doug King, who had won the day before, he was fourth, and Malcolm Cooper ended up fifth. He had won. I promoted the Pro Universe in New York in September, and I think it's different because he's obviously standing against different people, but that's a long time to hold that peak.
Yeah.
Between September and all the way to November, mid-November. But I think he looked a little sharper in New York and a little fuller. So in that class, they were just crazy, crazy, crazy good.
Yeah. We had posted a photo of Benjamin and Frederick in a back double.
Yeah.
It went like semi-viral within the natural community. I think it had like 100 shares in like a couple hours or something. It was wild.
Wow.
Yeah, people were all over that.
Impressive that the standards for condition have definitely improved. Like more people know how to get in shape.
Yeah.
Not that there were some, like there are people that I would say were a little ahead of their times. There was a guy competing in the 90s, Eddie Hernandez from New Jersey. If you want to look up, they called him Eddie the Rock Hernandez, over 200 pounds, striated glutes, ripped to the bone in the 90s as a natural guy. So
Wow.
he's still, I'm friends with him on Facebook. He still pipe in on some of the bodybuilding stuff, but he was an unbelievable competitor, but in terms of condition, way ahead of his time. Nobody was like that. Dave Gooden, the Texas Shredder, he was another guy. He was a smaller guy, but he was really ripped. But you didn't have a class where every person was ripped. Like
sure.
See that today, where the condition, especially in the men's bodybuilding, has improved. And then we got our men's heavyweight, the Brian DaCosta. He had won his pro card we had already talked about at my Monster Mash, and won the Monster Mash pro portion, came here and won. Bada Lakin, who was the previous year.
Yep, former champ.
Went to second.
Did Brian have any seconds, or was it straight first?
Yeah, he had 2 seconds, and those two people had Bada first.
Yep.
So Bada's got a lot of muscle. I mean, he's shorter, a lot of muscle.
His quads are ridiculous.
Biggest quads in natural bodybuilding, I think.
Crazy. Yeah. Let me think. I think you're right. I'm trying to think if there's anyone that had bigger quads. No.
I don't think so.
No. I don't think so.
Yeah, when we saw him,
there was one guy, Kai Green, when he was natural.
Yeah, fair.
He Worlds 96.
Yeah, Kai's Kai. He's impressive for his whole career.
I think he was either a teenager or maybe he was 20 years old, but unbelievable.
I have seen those photos. Yeah, they're crazy.
Yeah, I think there's a shot where he was 19. There's a shot in my head of him hitting a front lat spread.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he's 19, and it's just like.
Yeah, right. So
cool.
So Charlie Carollo owned the Fifth Ave gym in Brooklyn, and Kai Green was a member there, and so Kai got into starting competing in the the NGA, then the WNBF, and won the Worlds, and off he went. But unbelievable the amount of muscle he had, and his quads were crazy. So that would probably rival Bada, but I can't think of. Let me think. No, I think Bada's
damn good. He is damn good.
He is. But I would say the only, where I think Brian definitely beat him is on the back shots. Both of them, I think, kind of lean back a little bit too much, but with Bada not being as leaning back that much is not looking good at the weight at his lower back and waist. So Brian was definitely sharper.
Yeah, Bada definitely wasn't on his best, like conditioning wise. We commented on that when we were watching it.
No, and that definitely was what gave Brian the nod because, obviously Botta's got, the great frame. He's got the small waist, but yeah, definitely not as sharp, especially in the back, the lower back and the back shots, not as much detail. And Brian was fantastic. He improved a lot from my Monster Mash show was, 3 weeks before that. And he got a lot sharper and really did a good job in the 3 weeks improving to win the worlds. And, for the overall, I'll get you the scores on the overall. He was unanimous in the
I
overall.
would say, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was unanimous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their
I
second
thought it
was
was clear through the
yeah,
stream. Yeah.
second the middleweight and Dirk was third.
Yep. Yep. And fair. Like I don't think anybody could dispute that.
That's how I would have had it. Yeah.
Yeah. We do score it out though, because, people, if they make it that far, they want to know. They don't just want to know first. They want to know.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Amazing.
So a lot of fun. It was definitely a good world. I thought, being in Seattle, if as it moves from region to region, it gives different competitors that maybe can't travel as far the opportunity to compete in the event. The international percentage was very high at this show. Like a lot of people came from foreign countries to compete. And the amateurs, I don't think we had as good of a representation in the US. I think there's more US amateurs that are good, but I think the way that the qualifications are and the timing of the shows that, if everybody decides to wait till the end of the year to qualify, they're not going to all make it.
It's only a
So
small handful that are getting through.
it's a shame because I think that there would have been more people that would have competed, but they're all gunning for that last qualifier and 3 amateurs in each class qualify. So for 2024, I would suggest to people that if you really want to do that amateur worlds, that you jump in a couple spring shows or summer shows to get the qualification out of the way so that that you're in. There are a lot of fall shows, but it's just you could end up if you want to go to make sure you get in, you may have to travel, so you have to kind of plan for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So as an amateur, you still have to do a show and qualify for worlds. You
Yeah.
can't just go, right?
Yeah, so you have top 3, but it has to be a full class. So you need 5 people in the class for 3 people to qualify.
Right.
So if there's only 3 people in the class, which can happen, only the first place qualifies. But
Right.
in a normally contested class of the top 5, the top 3, I'm not sure what Canada does for their qualification, because each country can set their own qualifications for the worlds for what they want to bring for a team. So I don't know what Leo's doing.
Yeah, I can
With
remember off the top of my head.
yeah, but it's probably similar. It's probably something similar where it's the top 3. I
Yeah.
know in the UK they used to only let the first place winner come, and they were bringing at the time they were, and the Swiss are like that. Like it's the top person. And I don't know if it's changed. They may have gone to the top 3 because that's what we do. But they get to kind of make their own rules on that. So, but it's fun and it's really fun to meet the people from the different countries and, have, it's interesting how you can just within the industry of natural bodybuilding, you can meet so many of people that are so like-minded with you and you have so much in common that a lot of lifelong friendships are made
Oh, for sure.
for it. And I mean, I know myself, I competed for a long time and promoted for a long time. And the best thing that I have received from the sport are all the friendships that I've made and all the people I've been able to meet. The wins are nice, but you kind of forget about them after a while and it's more the experience
Yeah.
of it and
Yep.
being able to meet people and being able to meet like-minded. And the natural world is changing all the time. So,
Yeah.
you want to keep up on it. And, you know, for us, the natural part, the testing and making it fair and making it a good arena for people to be competing in is really, really important. So we don't have a lot of tolerance for drug testing problems.
That's fair. That's fair. Awesome, Nancy. Well, we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with the insight we were able to provide people, obviously with Worlds, but I think the sport in general, obviously you've got a viewpoint that not many would have, and I think a lot of people are going to get some good value out of this episode.
Okay, well, anytime I can talk about pretty much any topic you want.
I'm going to hold you to that because I think we might try to get you on a regular basis, to be honest.
A lot of good stuff. I mean, there's a lot. We could do a whole topic, a whole show just on natural bodybuilding and drug testing and standards.
Sign me up. You in for that, Dan?
Let me know.
Awesome. Well, Nancy, if people want to get a hold of you directly, if they have questions, if they have things they want to talk about, what's the best way for them to contact you?
My website is nancyandrewspresents.com, and my email is WNBFPres@gmail.com. So those are the best ways to get in touch with me. But we have a lot of good upcoming events, so hopefully we can get you guys at some of them or one of them. I'd love to have you cover one if you're up for it. We can talk more about that.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, one of the ones maybe with the pro piece too, so you can have some, you know, time with some of the pros. I think they'd appreciate it, and I hope they're all practicing their posing and their routine.
We'll give them hell if not.
That's right.
Awesome. We love it. We love it. Awesome, people. Well, if you enjoyed this episode with Nancy, let us know. Give the episode a like. Subscribe for future episodes. If you have topics, she's putting it out there. If you have topics you want her to cover, you want us to talk about, then let us know and we'll make it happen. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye. Have a good night.